Welcome everyone. I hope everyone's having a good day today, and I hope everything is treating you well. This is a quick tutorial on how to set up a Foundry virtual tabletop uh, client so that everyone here and everyone out there can have a good time with their friends, family, or otherwise. So, first thing you'll need to do is go to foundryvirtualtabletop.com, foundryvtt.com. It's the top left, right here, in case you need it. It's very easy to get to. Obviously, you'll need to purchase a license. It's about $50 plus tax, of course. I don't believe they ever do sales. You can purchase one for your friends. They really aren't very strict about it. You, the terms of service, I believe, are such that you can share it with your friends as long as you're not hosting multiple games at the same time, and it's assumed that you know, in good faith, only use it amongst your friend group. Now, I haven't read the the terms in quite some time. Um, I really should, but that was my understanding of when I first accepted the license. Um, Now, if your friends do use it a lot, I would recommend you buy it. It's a very good program. It's very good. You're here looking for a tutorial on how to set it up, presumably, or you just someone upon my channel, in which case, welcome. Uh, uh, but yeah, very simple, very easy to use. So once you purchase a license, I'm not going to show you how to do that. I'm assuming if you're thinking of purchasing one that you know how to do so. Once you have your license, it should be sent. They should send an email to you. But if you've already purchased a license and forgotten, or just as a refresher, you can click on your name at the top right. Go to purchase licenses, and it'll be down here. I'm not going to scroll down. It has my license. I don't want to edit it out. It's a lot of work. But you can assume it's right under there. Now, you also need to download your client. So what you want to do is you go to purchase licenses as before, go to download version, go to the release that you want. Now the current release as of this posting is 12.331. Though there are, I believe, beta builds for testing build 13.337. Cute, cute, it's very cute. No, there's one more three than there should be. They also have API development builds. These are really only the prototype API development and feature testing builds really are for testing. I do not recommend you download them unless you are testing or you know what you're doing. If you're here, you're probably not in that category. It will come to you eventually. You'll get all the shiny features, all the bugs, and all the systems will presumably work with the system they recommend is the latest, which is 12.331. So, once you've selected that, go down, select your operating system. I'm using Mac. I'm using I'm using Windows. Click on Windows. Click download. Now, if you are purchasing a license for someone else, or you need to send a timed URL to like a third-party server hosting, you can click on timed URL. That'll give you a URL you can use to allow someone else to download for you, so that they can set it up. Um, Again, mostly good for setting up private servers that will be permanently up. There's really no reason, in my opinion, that it needs to be permanently up. But there are some campaigns, like a free March campaign or a campaign that has multiple GMs. It might be useful in that regard. Uh, but I won't be doing that for you right now. Click download. It'll take about, well, it'll depend on how quick your internet is. But uh, once it's downloaded, you'll have a Foundry Virtual Tabletop in your downloads, obviously. Go ahead and click on that. Don't change, I'm not afraid. Alright, so I'm going to reset up my Foundry to help you guys out here. It'll pop up with a license agreement. Now, I know a lot of people don't read these. You really should. It is important that you don't break your license agreement, because they will take your license from you if you break it, if they find out. You can see here, you may install and activate the software on one or more computers, but only one hosted instance of the software may be accessible to users other than the license owner at any given time. So it's mostly for testing purposes, setting things up. I run a campaign on Sundays, and a friend who originally gave me a copy of Foundry also now runs a campaign on Sunday. By license, you can't do that, so I don't run my campaigns on Sundays anymore. Though I had, well, when we were sharing, I didn't use it on Sundays anymore. Um, but yeah, make sure you read this. Make sure you understand it because you are agreeing to it. Now, obviously, you want to set it up wherever you think appropriate. You will be using a lot of storage space. So make sure you have enough storage space on the drive that you're sending it to. And B, if you are sending it to an old hard drive and you have an available SSD, I do recommend it. You're going to be sending a lot of data to a lot of different people when you use Foundry. So my C drive is an SSD, so I'm going to send it to C program files, Foundry Virtual Tabletop, Foundry Virtual Tabletop. Right, of course. So we're just going to let that run real quick. If you're looking for music to listen to, not one to judge or be pushy about it, I have gotten into Good Kid lately. I like the band. It's very nice. Now, if I was a better video maker, I'd edit this part out. However, I'm still in the process of learning that, so we'll just talk about a few things. In fact, while it's doing that, why don't I show you? You may be wondering why you would have needed older Foundry versions. Right, I need to, of course. So, this will show you all the modules and systems that are available right now. You can see that most of them are version 12, version 13. If it has version 13 and you're looking to run a game in that, don't feel pressured to take it to version 13. You can see that these things are verified for version 13, but they're actually meant for version 12. So that's really all you need to worry about there. As long as the version works. And even if the most up-to-date version doesn't work, these manifest URLs should send you to a link you can download an older version from if you need to. If for whatever reason, you want to use version 11, which I did for a very long time for Pathfinder 1E, you can go to a URL that allows version 11 and download it so that all the modules work, everything clicks. Okay, so Foundry is done installing. And it is being brought up now. So it will ask you to set up a password. I already have a password set up, and because I put it on a area that already had an install, it isn't prompting me for it. It'll also prompt you for your authorization key. The authorization key is earlier in the video when I was downloading this. If you scroll down, there will be your authorization key there. Download that, input a password, and it should bring you to this, the homepage of Foundry Virtual Tabletop. You won't have these pre-existing worlds. Those are the ones I'm currently running, or had, but am storing for posterity's sake, things that are on hold, etc., etc. You also won't have any systems pre-installed. I have all these installed. Don't worry about it for right now. So to get a system, you just click Install System. You look for the one you want. Let's go with... I haven't installed Lancer for a while, so we'll install Lancer. But if you can't find what you need, search for it. Like, I used to play Dark Heresy. And I already had installed. Wonderful. How about 3.5? Oh, they don't have 3.5, really? Huh. That is surprising. They don't have 3.5 on here. Well, You learn something new every day. Um, I guess no one wants to support it. That's really sad. It's really sad. Anyway, once you have it installed, a green bar would have popped up over here, and that would have been your progress bar. Once it's gone, you have it installed. Go back to Game Worlds. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Go back to Game Worlds. Click Create World, and we're gonna do a quick 1E Pathfinder setup. And we're gonna name it Test World. The data path is where the default information will be sent. You can rename the default data path if you really want. I typically leave it plain, just so I always know what's connected to what. You can set your background image here. I'm not going to set one up because I don't have one pre-made. If you have a theme, you can set it here. And if you have a plan next session, you can set it up as well below that. The world description. There you go. Now, once you've done that and you create world, it will create the world template, and you just click on it, and it will bring you to the login page. You will have no users except for the game master at start. And if you hadn't set things up correctly, you can go to return to setup below, and that will return you to the home page. Simple. We'll go back to the test world. We'll click as GM, Game Master. It has no default password. If you trust your players, you don't need one. I don't. Though I also always am logged in when my players have access to my world, so I guess maybe not so much trust there, but hey, whatever. Click Join Game Session when you are ready. Now, the most default basic of modules and systems will have a blank screen. Though if you are doing a first time install, Foundry is so kind as to have a bunch of stuff on the right hand side. They'll give you a landing page. It's perfect. It's great. It'll help you get oriented. But if you're watching this, you're looking for more help than that. So we're going to go to create scene. So we're going to go to the third tab, not to rush ahead. The third tab, actually, you know, let's take a step back here. We have a few things that you'll be looking at. Starting from the left-hand side. No. We'll start from the right-hand side. The chat box. The chat box is a good place to start. The chat box has several tabs for the Game Master. Chat messages, where people can talk, and also where role commands will be accepted. It's fairly self-explanatory. Down here at the bottom, you have public roles, private GM roles. Private GM roles are for stuff you don't want your players to see. Blind GM roles, which I believe are... I don't actually remember what blind GM role is for. I think it's... No, I'm sorry. I think blind GM is for sending... for players to send stuff to the GM. And self-roll... I don't really know. I've never used self-roll. I'll be entirely honest with you. I'll have to look it up later. And I'll post it down in the description. Beyond that, you have export chat log at the bottom right. If you have a session where you've given your players a lot of information, or if you're just creating logs for your own reviewing, you can export it, and that will allow you to take the entire log and just store it for later viewing. And then finally, next to that, we have the clear chat log. If there's too many messages, it's getting bogged down. One of my players even thinks that the chat log can lag his computer or lag his connection. I'm not so sure about that, but I humor him, and I delete it from time to time just so he feels better about it. Next, we have the Encounters tab. We'll come back to this once we have a few actors set up, but keep it in mind. Third tab is the Scenes tab. It's the one that looks like a map. There's Create Scene and Create Folder. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to run your game, but I like to be organized. So whenever I start up a new campaign, I name a folder Act 1, and at least then I'm not, when I'm hitting Act 2, Act 3, constantly going back and, oh my god, what maps have I already used? Oh no, this is terrible. Oh god. Now, once you create a folder, or if you don't want to create a folder, you can hit Create Scene, name the scene, and that'll bring you to a blank scene. And then it will pull up the configure scene template. We're going to cover the basics of that, starting with the basics. It comes with a scene name, it comes with permissions, it comes with a navigation name. Navigation name is what will be displayed for your players. So scene name, I typically name something for myself, and then navigation name, I typically name so my players have an idea of what they're looking at face value. Background image is the image that you're going to want to be the primary image of the map. We'll go to... Can't do that. We'll do with this one, just so you guys have an idea. Credit to Neutral Party on Patreon. Their maps are great. So you'll see automatically, or very quickly, I'm sure, that the grid, just a mess. It's a mess. I can't help that one because it's not Neutral Party's fault. It's my fault. I downloaded it. This is a thumbnail, not the actual map. So no matter how much I mess with that, it won't matter. So what I do for that is I just go to configure, go to grid size, and I go to gridless. If you can't get the map to match up, and you don't need it for combat, which I didn't ever need this one for combat, I just set it to gridless so that you have an idea, so it doesn't look awful, you know. Look, it looks all nice, it looks all pretty. But to finish our tutorial on the scene configurations, foreground images are things you put above objects in the map. Good for things like shadows, clouds, things that need to be on there, like roofs of buildings. Though I would use a different thing for that. Background color is just the area beyond the scene. You don't need to really mess with that unless you're unhappy with it. Foreground elevation, it's not something I use a lot. Effectively, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it for right now. Initial view position. So if I were to set the initial view position to this is what my players would see when they first load in. If you want them to see something specific, like you only want them to see the campsite, you zoom in as far as you want with the scroll wheel, and then click that button, and it will set the zoom to 3 and set it so that they are directly looking at the campsite when they load in. It's good for setting the scene. I don't use it a lot. I really should. It's a very good feature. But when I'm setting up scenes, I'm typically overworked as it is. We'll go to the grid. I showed you a bit of the grid earlier. Gridless. We'll cover a proper how to set up the grid in a little while. But for the time being, the grid type, gridless, square, hexagonal rows, hexagonal odd even rows, and odd even columns. We'll cover that as well a little bit earlier. Frankly, I'll come back to grid when we have an actual map that I can show you guys the proper way to deal with. Lighting. So, different systems have different ideas of how to set up lighting. Token vision is required to be on if you want your players to be able to see things only within line of sight to their token. If you have it off, the entire scene is visible, as it says. Fog exploration allows you to create a an exploration map effectively. If you want to set up a fog of war image, you'll need like a shadows or something. If you're doing that, I do recommend you set up an unexplored color and an explored color. Now, global illumination is also important. Without global illumination on, players, even if they have token vision, will treat the entire scene as dark. So on Pathfinder 1.8, you're going to want to go to lighting, go to global illumination, so that they can actually see something when they load in. If you don't, you will need to set up alternative lighting, or if a scene is intentionally dark, obviously they'll need to cast a spell like light or take out a torch, something of that sort. Finally, we have ambience. Ambience is not something I use a lot, but you can set up some very nice things with it. If you have a journal linked, it can be useful for setting up notes. If you have a playlist, it'll automatically set up. Sorry, if you have music to play when the scene is loaded, it goes here in the scene playlist. Same with the playlist sound. Finally, weather effects. If you're using weather effects, setting one up will cause a nice little rain or snow or blizzard or wind effect to appear on the screen. It's very nice. I like it a lot. Adds a little bit of little bit of thing, a little bit of flair to the scene. Next, Actors tab. Actors tab, very simple, very easy to use. Just like with the Scene tab, I always start with a folder. Players, Act 1. So, Tutorial PC. And we'll cover how to set up an actual PC a little bit later, maybe in a future video. I'm trying to keep these under 30 minutes and just show you how to set up right now. So, we'll cover that. We'll come back and we'll cover it. The fourth tab is the Items tab. Items are the Items tab is very much a homebrew thing, or if you want your players to have access and you don't want to give them access to compendiums, no real reason to do that. Compendiums are pretty safe. They can't be modified, they can't be edited unless you allow it. So I typically just use the Items tab for homebrew items. Likewise, just like with the Scenes in the Actors tab, I create a folder, so I know what I'm doing. So I know where it is, I know where it's from. Access for me, maybe not your style, but, to each their own. I'll cover this one again when there's in a future video. The fourth tab, Journal tab. Hey, did you guess it? You probably did. Create a folder. Journal entries are great, in my opinion. Your players have to enjoy them for them to be good. My players do seem to enjoy my journal entries, so they don't have to look at Discord or turn away from the screen, just to keep them in the game. The next video will also cover this. Roll tables. Now, roll tables are not needed very often. If you need to create a roll table, you can do it. Roll tables are typically things like, if you're playing 5e D&D, a wild magic table. So you don't have to pull up the chart and have them roll. You can just put it all in there. You can put the effects on there. You could have spawning things on there. It's great if you're using it. My game doesn't use a lot of random stuff, so I don't use it very often, but in that future video, I will show you how to use that. Card stacks. I don't use it at all. I never use cards. If you're using cards, this is for you. I'll show you how to use it, but I don't use it myself. I find card stuff to be kind of... I don't know. I don't like cards. Music. playlists. Now, if you're gonna install music to your game, it uses a lot of bandwidth, and your players may not like the music you're using. Please check with them that they are okay with you using music. They can turn it down if they like, but it takes up a lot of. It does have to be sent to them, even if they turned off or turned down the music, and that's a lot of bandwidth that they might not want to use. You might not want to use, and if you're on a measured connection, it might not be something you want to hassle with. So do talk with your party before doing that. Fourth tab, or sorry, final penultimate tab, compendiums. Compendiums, as I described a little bit earlier, are the framework and all of the intricacies of the system built down into pre-built packages. You can see here in the Actors tab of the compendiums, it has a basic monsters compendium. You can unpack these things, you can import them, you can do whatever you want with them. It's nice, just simple stuff that comes pre-packaged with the system so that you always have access to. You can create compendiums of your own, you can browse the compendiums en masse at the bottom with the browse spells, browse items, browse bestiary, browse features, though this will be different depending on which system you're using. Again, this is a Pathfinder 1E system. The Pathfinder 2E system is a lot better than this, but Pathfinder 1E system is still pretty good compared to some of the very bare bones systems out there, like, say, the Star Wars RPG. A shame. Finally, we come to the Settings tab. Now, you might be asking, hey, how do I get my players in here? Well, you need to go to User Management, and you need to create additional users. Go ahead and set up a username for each of them so they know what belongs to them. If your players aren't really friends, or if your friends have a history of messing with each other, you might want to set up a password. I don't typically, even with the people that I play with outside of my friend group, just because they typically know what they're doing and they typically don't mess with each other's stuff. But you can always set up a password if you need. Now, the user role stuff. You can see here, by going to configure permissions, what a user role has available to them. By default, a player will have access to pinging the canvas, creating measured templates, displaying their mouse cursor, displaying ruler measurement, the ability to open and close doors, the ability to use script macros, and whisper private messages. That restricts them very heavily. They can't broadcast audio, can't broadcast video, which I don't use very often, so those aren't important to me. They can't configure their own token settings. If they have a specific thing, that means you'll have to do that for them. They can't create cards. I don't know why you need to do that. Again, I don't use cards very much, but they can't do it. They can't create journal entries. Some players like to take a lot of notes. I recommend giving players the ability to do that. To give them permissions, you just click on the box. Create map notes. I also give my players permission to create map notes. It doesn't harm the game. Create new actors. Creating new actors can really muck up your system. But if you don't want to do everything yourself, give it to them. Same with create new items and create new tokens. Delete tokens can be a bit tricky. Sometimes your players will accidentally delete a token in the middle of combat. It happens. It happens. I don't recommend giving that to them, but you can. You can if you want. Make manual rolls. Now, I'm surprised making manual rolls is off by default. You can give it to them if you want. Upload new files. If if Foundry is hosted on your personal computer, I do not recommend you allow them to upload new files, especially if you don't know them. Now, I don't know who is going out of their way to do this, to upload malicious stuff via Foundry. It's very inefficient. But I'm sure there are people out there that do it, unfortunately. I don't recommend, unless you know the players, that you give them access to upload new files. I just don't. You can give people access to drawing tools, even if sometimes you get people who draw inappropriate things. You can just delete it. It's fine. It's fine. Save the configuration. Save and return. And just to show it off, once it's done loading, we'll log it out. And you can see, you can now log in as any of your players. If someone is already logged in, I can't show you this, unfortunately. I only have myself right now. It will appear gray, which means that someone is already logged into that slot. And no one else can do so. Finally. Now, I've created slots for my players, but I don't know how they join. It has no linking. Well, you might have seen it earlier. Invitation links. You have your local network. If they're on a local network, i.e. you're like a LAN party, if you even know what a LAN party is anymore, then they'll connect via the local network link. If they are not, and you are seeing a red circle instead of the green circle, that means your connection is closed. We will cover, since we're already running over, in the next video, how to set up port forwarding. Frankly, I hate port forwarding. I hope you don't have this issue, because port forwarding is a pain in my butt. I hate it. I hate working with routers. This is why my brother does that kind of stuff. He gets paid good money to do that kind of stuff. I, on the other hand, hate Comcast with a burning passion. But I digress. Hopefully it's green. If it is, you click on it. It will copy your link to your clipboard, and you can send that to your friends. I'm not showing you my link because I don't want people to log in. With that, that covers the very basics of setting up Foundry Virtual Tabletop. In the next video, we'll cover how to set up PCs in Pathfinder 1E, how to deal with grids in Pathfinder 1E, how to deal with combats, setting up combats and dealing with all those wonderful things. And if anyone has any other requests, I'd be more than happy to cover them for you. Thanks. And I hope the audio quality is a bit better. I also hope there's less staggering, which there should be. Peace, and everyone have a good night, good day, and make sure you treat each other well, alright?